We are rolling into February, and you know what that means. Love. He's talking about love. It means love. Hell no. I'm talking about the NBA All-Star Game being right around the corner. I got my coffee here. Let's talk about it. So the NBA All-Star Game is slated to happen February 19th out in Salt Lake City, Utah. I hope they make everybody play in them John Stockton short shorts just to honor the Utah legend. The starters for both the East and West have been announced already, and the reserves will be announced later this week. And yeah, we got some things to talk about with these starters. Starting with the East, you've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, and Donovan Mitchell as your starters. There's obviously one big name that's missing off that starting lineup. All right, so obviously no Joel Embiid in the East starting lineup. You basically had 4 MVP contenders vying for 3 spots. All right, you had Giannis, KD, Jason Tatum, and Joel Embiid. All 4 of those guys you can make an argument for, but there was only 3 spots and somebody was going to be left out. Some may argue KD should be the one left out, but you got to remember when he was healthy and playing, he had the Nets sitting atop the East. They were in first place, and then he got hurt and they've dropped since. So it's really hard to argue against KD. Giannis is Giannis, and he's big in the fan votes. It's going to be hard for really anybody out of the East to beat him in fan votes. So I really don't think he's going to lose his spot if you were to take somebody out. Tatum has Boston sitting at the top of the East currently. He's having the MVP type season. It's just hard, man. It's hard. I mean, you got 3 spots for 4 MVP candidates. Somebody's going to be left out. I mean, there is a way to fix that, and that you get rid of the positional requirements, which is something I will talk about later in the video. That may be some changes coming to the All-Star game, because in an ideal world, you'd have Embiid, KD, Tatum, Giannis, and probably that 5th starter would end up being Donovan Mitchell. That would probably be the 5 if you had no positional requirements, but it is what it is right now. Out west, those starters, we got LeBron James, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Jokic, and Zion Williamson. Zion was a bit of a surprise for some people, and I get it. He's only played 29 games of the 51 games they've had, but in those 29 games he has played, he's put up 26 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, right? About 4 assists. Like those are all-star numbers. Like any way you want to look at it, the games he has played, he's been an all-star. Those numbers are worthy of a starting position. And really the ones you'd argue to start ahead of him would probably either be Sabonis or Lauri Markkanen. Those 2 are not going to be Zion in the fan votes. I mean, he's just the bigger name, the bigger draw, probably double, triple their numbers as far as the fan votes go. And the games he's played, like I said, he's been putting up all-star stats and numbers. I know some people were arguing that he shouldn't at least get the starting spot, but I'm not mad at it. I mean, the dude, he's an all-star. And this week, we get the NBA All-Star reserves announced. It's honestly going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they go about this, because there's always this, how are we going to judge who's an all-star and who's not? Like, for instance, do you take the second player from one of the top teams? So teams sitting at the top of the conference, obviously their best players are going to get in, but do you take the second best player, someone like a James Harden on Philadelphia or a Drew Holiday on the Bucks, over the players that play for like the bottom teams, but they're the best players, someone like Siakam out of Toronto, or Trae Young out of Atlanta, or Halliburton out of Indiana? Like, how do you judge that, dude? It's a hard thing. It really is. I'm just going to start in the East, name off my reserves. Start with the obvious picks of Joel Embiid and Jaylen Brown. I think are the 2 most obvious that they're going to be there. Julius Randle's also had a great year this year. He's led the Knicks. They're sitting in 7th right now out East. 24 points per game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. All right, those he's definitely going to get in. And I like Jalen Brunson. He's stepped up his game. He's averaging 22, 6 assists, about 3-4 rebounds a game. Like I think he really has stepped it up. I think he's going to get a spot in the All-Star. Out of Miami, I'm going with Bam Adebayo. I know Jimmy's there, Jimmy Butler, and he's kind of the leader of that team, but I think Bam's just having the year this year. Bam is averaging 21 a game, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. All right, I think those numbers put him in. Jimmy Butler's definitely in consideration. He's putting up some good numbers too. 21 a game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. You know, it's a hard thing, man. I would give the nod to Bam, but Jimmy's definitely there, and he could get a spot. Both of them could get a spot, but my spot I'm giving to Adebayo. And my last 2 spots, it's hard because you're gonna leave somebody out. You know, you're always gonna leave a player that's deserving of the All-Star game. Like, there's just not enough spots. My last 2, I'm going with Tyrese Halliburton out of the Indiana Pacers, and I'm gonna give it to James Harden. He's one of the main reasons why Philly is currently sitting second in the East. Like the last 25 games, there's something like 20-5, and he's stepped up and he's played well off of Joel Embiid, and so I'm going to give him the nod. Out west, I think we got picks that are going to be a little bit more concrete. I really think there's maybe only one position or one spot that's really up for grabs by multiple people. I think the most obvious selections out west for the reserves, you've got Ja Morant. All right, you got to add Ja in there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has to be included in the All-Star game. The dude's having a killer year, putting up killer numbers. You can't ignore that. Like, you got to have him in. Dame Lillard is still doing his thing, putting up all-star numbers like he normally does. You got to have him in. He's in. Lauri Markkanen will make his first All-Star game. I think he's in. He's been leading Utah, a team that was supposed to be probably worst in the league. He had them at one time, I think, close to the top of the Western Conference. He's just stepped his game up. He's definitely going to be an All-Star this year. And we need the Beam team. We need the Beam team, both of them. I got both Sabonis and Fox getting in. They currently sit in third in the West. They've been leading the way the whole time. They should be in. And that last spot, man, that's tough. Denver's currently top of the conference. So do you go with Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray, who have helped them get there? As I mentioned before, Zion has missed a bunch of games, and yet Pelicans are still sitting in a playoff spot. That is because CJ McCullough has had a very good year. He's deserving of a spot. So do you go with CJ in that last spot? One name that I don't hear much in All-Star consideration, but should be considered, Desmond Bane. All right, Memphis is currently sitting second in a stacked West, and of course Ja Morant is the engine that makes them go. But Desmond Bane is currently averaging about 21 points per game, and he does a lot of the little things. If you've ever watched a Memphis game, you know he normally guards their best player, rebounds well. He's consistently been the second best player behind Ja, and one of the main reasons why Memphis currently sits second in the West. I think he should be considered for an All-Star game for sure. Anthony Edwards putting up some big numbers. I mean, he should get consideration. But for that last spot, I'm giving it to Paul George. The Clippers currently sit fourth in the West, and Paul George has really been the reason. Kawhi, we really haven't known with his minutes limitation, when he's going to play, how much he's going to play when he does. And Paul George has been the one that's carried them this far where they're at right now. I'm giving it to Paul George. Paul George is going to get that last spot. Other thing we got to talk about is the new change they made, that they are picking the teams the night of the game. So we won't even know who's on whose team until the night of, right before the game. I'm loving it. Makes it feel like it's the best pickup game in the world. In fact, I think they should go all in with it. Literally bring the players out on the court, line up on the sideline. Giannis, LeBron step out, and they just start picking. Like, you on my team, you on my team. Have them even walk across. I'll say let's take it even further. Let's have them then shoot to see who shirts and who skins. Let's have them call their own fouls. Might as well. Like, if there's disagreement, they can't agree. Okay, shoot for it. Ball never lies. Honestly, can't be worse than what's going on with the refs right now. I'll tell you that much. Speaking of changes, I do think there will be some changes going forward with the All-Star game. I think this will be the last year that we see that positional requirements of 2 guards, 3 forwards. I think that goes out the window. Adam Silver has a history of being very open to change, especially when it comes to the All-Star game. We've seen the Elam ending. We've seen now that there's no East versus West. It's that everybody's mixed and these captains are picking. I think this will be the next change. The 5 best players get picked. If that's 5 centers, then whatever. If it's 5 guards, it's whatever. With the teams now being picked by different captains and everybody gets mixed up, it really doesn't matter. So what do you guys think? Do you like the changes? Not like the changes? Are you excited for the game? You could care less? I said what I said. Fight me in the comments.